Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
If you want to get a better understanding of the lives and experiences of the American military veteran, you've come to the right place.
Somebody asked me, would you go back and do it all over again? Yeah, tomorrow. If I could remember how to start the damn helicopter.
Conversations with people who have changed, some even saved, this country.
Boys crying. I don't want to die.
We don't only talk to veterans here.
He looked at his executioner and he said, I don't blame you for what you're about to do. I blame this government.
But we talk to a lot of veterans here.
Sharks would get so close to you, you'd pull up your legs just as far as you could and hold them up out there, keep them shark from getting your legs.
I had 4 special court martials. 4.
War is hell, that's all there is to it.
My name is Josh Rowe, and this is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. Today on the show, a conversation with Marine Corps Veteran E.J. Goodroe. Today, E.J. is the director of the Office of Military and Veteran Services at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. He's also a Marine Corps ambassador for the 250th birthday. The Marines will turn 250 years old this November 10th. Here's my conversation with E.J. Goodroe.
So I'm one of those government kids, right? My dad did a lot of traveling for his work for his agency. I'll put it like that. He's actually a Vietnam veteran. So he served in the Army from 69, 70 Vietnam. And, you know, for me, when I heard his story, he used to tell us growing up. He didn't tell too much, but he would talk about just how proud he was of his service and just kind of, you know, as the oldest of 4, that resonates with you, right? You go, okay, well, you know, me, I'll think of military. And of course, going through high school, I got my first car. Priorities change real quick. When you get your first car, you sit there, you go, nope, the world's my oyster. I'm going to try to go out there and figure it out. But service was always in the back of my mind. And obviously 9/11 happens, and that was early in my high school career. I started taking that a little more seriously. So one of my buddies went to boot camp right after graduation. And of course, he came back in his dress blues. And I said, well, here we go. I guess I'm going to the Marine Corps. And myself, my good friend, we did the buddy program. So we went to Paris Island. And upon completion from there, we were both assigned to, at the time, it was called 4th Civil Affairs Group out of Washington, D.C. I know they shut that unit down now, but did some time there in the reserves. I spent a lot of time on active duty, helped out with the recruiting efforts in 2008. I said, what am I doing? I'm doing this every day. I might as well just be, you know, go full blown active duty. And so from there, I was a field radio operator. I did a lateral move over to Satellite Communications, and they stationed me with 9th Communication Battalion out there in Camp Pendleton, California. So I got out there, deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, was there for the entire, all of 2010, came back, and this was right around, I know in one of your videos you spoke about just kind of the RIF, right, the reduction in force. And that happened right around 2011, 2012. And I had to make a big decision. I sat there and said, I could either stay in at that point, I'm halfway there, I might as well just commit to the full 20 or get out and take advantage of this new thing called the GI Bill. And I did. So I went out, left service 2012 and went back to school using the GI Bill.
Tell me about that deployment. What was 2010 like for you?
You know, it was interesting. So, because we were just getting done with Iraq, I know operational tempo was, hey, we're kind of winding things down in Iraq. And it was right around Thanksgiving. I'll never forget it. We were at my buddy's house, one of my, the sergeant's house. And we were watching the news and made the big announcement that we're going to do a troop surge in 2010 because we were already kind of rotation. We had a feeling that we were going to be going out. But of course, right on Monday morning, when they go, hey, you got to go see Gunny. I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. What did we do? What happened? And he goes, are you ready? And I said, yeah. He goes, we're going to Afghanistan. I said, when? He goes, next month. It was January. So literally, we found out November. Got the announcement in November, got to the shop December, and next thing you know, we're deploying Afghanistan. And that was an interesting time, right? It's we kind of got there, and like everything else, a little bit of chaos at first. The MEV was over there, get everything established, and here comes we were the Advon team, right? So we were the MEF. Here comes the MEF getting ready to really kind of put everything together. And it was interesting just because there's a lot of missions going on, and just sometimes there's a lack of clarity, right? You get there, they go, "Who are you?" "Well, we're 9th Comm. We're from the MEF." "Okay, what's going on here? What are you guys doing here?" "Well, we're here to set up your satellite communications. That's what we're here to do." And once you get that ball rolling, it was interesting. At that time, we had a big push in Marja, supporting a lot of those units there. And you kind of just saw the entire, especially being there for a year, right? You saw from the very beginning what the MEV was able to do, because we've been there since 2001. And when we finally showed up and started putting up the infrastructure, it just kind of transformed. It literally felt like overnight. And then towards the end of the point, when you get back, you realize like, wow, it was interesting. Like I said, it's a lot of things happened as far as just looking back at it now. You didn't realize at the time what part of the mission or what role you had in those missions. Very proud of what we accomplished, but also it's really a humbling experience. Like I said, it's the best and worst experience of your life, right? Where you look at it and go, geez, that really, really tested you, and in ways you never would have imagined. And I think the biggest thing is looking at it, especially speaking of my dad being a Vietnam veteran. He said, yeah, be proud of your service, be proud of what you did. Because a lot of people didn't step up to do what you guys are doing. So be proud of that. So for me, it was interesting. It was a great time, great experience, but also too, it's you grow up a lot during that period.
Yeah, you mentioned that setting up satellite communications, and I think that's the story of the military that a lot of folks may not understand who haven't lived it. It's just how many different facets go into making the whole thing work. I mean, the military obviously is a giant operation. The Department of Defense is giant, and so you gotta I don't even know the number of years Afghanistan went on, but more than a decade, right? And so all of the things that went into place, and all of the people like yourself that had jobs to do, spending a year away from home and your loved ones, and all those things. I mean, and I think we all can relate to that on some level. But can you just speak to that? Just how seeing that firsthand, just how many different facets there is to a deployment.
It's I go right from the very beginning, right? When you get there, the logistics, just getting manpower over, getting Marines over, and they go, "Who are you?" "9th Comm. What are you doing here?" Right? Just little things like that. And then coordinating with the MEP, which is looking at just kind of the capabilities they were working with at the time for the communication side of the house, right? So for me, I'm going from a field radio operator, which I used to carry the radio in the back, the big antenna, going to satellite communications. You're dealing with antennas. Now you're talking about contacting the good old folks in Colorado, asking permission to get on the satellite. Because if you don't without permission, you could possibly knock off other transmissions, right? So there's a lot of, for me, my background in communications, you're talking about how do you get the equipment over there? Well, you got to get with all the logistics folks. Okay, well, how much is it weigh? No, that's too heavy, so you need to get off. Things like that, just little things like that, where you don't even take into consideration, where you go, well, you asked us to be here. Yeah, we did, but we also have to make sure you get there, you transport everyone safely too, right? And so you look at it, okay, finally get the equipment over there. Then it's a matter of working with, you're trying to provide services such as internet services, phone services. You could transport data back to the States or back to other outlying units within the surrounding COPs and FOBs. And then you're working with infantry too, right? Going, hey, we're going out patrol. You think you provide some support for the comm side? Gotcha. Whether it be infantry or just the wing itself, communication today, that's the most important aspect, right? We have to communicate with one another in logistics. We get there, we establish it. How do we get there? And then once we get there, how are we talking to each other? And it's just amazing when you see it all come together. Like I said, I used to watch, look some of the CVs out there building up the new tents, or as far as the runways for the planes land. I used to go, oh my gosh, it is. I was awestruck, honestly, just completely blown away by that. And it's unbelievable, because you think, here I am just doing my little piece of this mission here, is providing communication, but you don't realize just how many different things it ties into, right? As far as the guys out there on patrol, the gals out there are helping out with support, logistics, and it's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah. Tell me your experience when you said you came home, you got out in 2012, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then when did you start school, start college?
I started that in 2012, actually. So, you get out of the Marine Corps and you're just tired. You're just a little bit tired. The operational pace and tempo is, you don't think about it when you're in it, because you're in it, you're just young, you're just full of energy. But I remember getting home and all I did was sleep for the longest time, where I said, wow. So it was right around that summer I got out. I started summer classes at the community college at the time in good old Northern Virginia. And I started those classes, and quite frankly, going to school, there's a reason why I joined the military. It was not to go to school. And here I am going back to school because of the military. And you're trying to get acclimated, assimilated to get into civilian life. And I remember I said, I need to find a job, because at that point, the new GI Bill was still relatively new. So I was part of that first generation of post 9/11 GI Bill users. And so you're all trying to figure this out. And you know very well, whenever they tell you that they're going to pay for everything and then pay you to go to school, you go, no. I've already signed a contract once or twice. I know how this works. But it turns out they work, but it was still very brand new. And so I remember walking into the veterans office there on campus. Shocker, another Marine. He goes, "Hey, you ever heard of VA work study?" I said, "No." "What is that?" He goes, "You can work at school while you're going to school." And I said, "Sign me up. Let's go. I need a job anyways." And that's how I got my start. So really, it's because of another Marine. And I always give credit where credit's due. I'll give a credit to the chiefs, the Navy chiefs. They're everywhere. So we work in tandem, right? And they started showing me the ropes as far as, hey, this is the kind of documentation we need to get your GI Bill benefits started. Hey, we're going out there for Q&A. These are the answers we're going to provide, because we're trying to, like anything else, when you go through TAPS, you sit in those big classrooms and you just got a bunch of information coming over you and you're just overwhelmed. We try to make it by the numbers, right? Again, it's like boot camp all over again, by the numbers. 1, we're doing this. 2, we're doing this. 3, this is how it works. And that's how I got my start. It was at the community college. And finally, when I felt pretty comfortable, I guess, within that environment, it was already time for me to transfer out to the university. And, you're very sad about that. You go, gosh, I just figured things out here. Now it's time for me to go. But obviously, with a military background, you're used to packing up and going and starting fresh again. And so when I transferred to the university at GW, I started working in their military and veterans office as well, too. And that's when I really kind of got more involved with the certification of benefits on that end. And because I was going to school in DC, we happened to be right down the road from the Department of Veterans Affairs. And at that time, they were trying to start a pilot program for veterans to do internship and work with the actual VA, the central office. And I got, pulled for that. And I started seeing the bigger picture, right? You start at the ground level as being someone who's using the GI Bill and just trying to figure out the paperwork. And here I am now in the central office going, oh, wow, this is how we administer all these benefits. And this is how we, determine eligibility, et cetera. And because of that experience, my first job when I graduated, which I was very fortunate, was at American University as the primary school certified official. I did that for a while. And then because my dad grew up in South Texas, he always told me, if you ever get a chance to go check out the Gulf Coast, go take a chance for that. And so a job opened up at a community college here in Corpus Christi, Texas. And I worked at Del Mar College for 7 years and now I'm at the university. So yeah, it's kind of hopefully, long story short, I've been doing this now for about the past 12 years. It's been a wonderful ride.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I'm curious about this. I just your perspective on it. I've talked to Vietnam veterans like your dad, and there's this one guy in town who was in ROTC in college, and so he knew he was going over and did his year, and it was an Army medic, and he had it planned out. He had already enrolled in law school and been accepted at the University of Tennessee, just north of us here, and he said he literally hitchhiked plane lands from Vietnam into Seattle, hitchhikes from Seattle to Knoxville, and starts law school. And he says when he got on campus, he learned really quickly, do not tell anybody he's been to Vietnam, because there were protests, he couldn't get dates, all those things, just to the climate of the time. And I remember talking around probably 08, 09, some guys, I used to work in Michigan. Some guys were going to Western Michigan who had just been back. I forget if it was Iraq or Afghanistan. And they were frustrated because they would go to campus and it was the exact opposite as far as people being angry. They didn't even realize where they had been and what they had done, and didn't, some folks knew, but a lot of folks who were that age in classes didn't have a lot of real perspective on that. Just curious on any of those thoughts that you might want to add on to. What was your perception when you went literally deployed 2010? A year or so later, you're in a classroom with probably students who are younger than you, et cetera.
Sure. That's a great question. I appreciate that, because it's interesting, right? When I remember the first I sat in the class and looked around going, oh my gosh, not only am I older than these individuals, but they have no idea. They have no idea. And it's not their fault. Honestly, it's not their fault at all. It's one of those things where you're trying to remove that, sometimes the prejudice or the assumptions, and you go, all right, you know what? I'm here to learn, and maybe I could teach them something too. And honestly, I was very fortunate, especially going to school in Northern Virginia. People were very supportive of the service. As a matter of fact, they had a lot more questions. I know my dad spoke about that too during his experience coming back from Vietnam, where he was treated poorly. And for me, it was the exact opposite. In our current generation, the exact opposite. And I remember I had a lot of questions as far as like, what's it like in the Marines? Is it true that, you guys are the best of the best? Like, yes, it is. It's always true. There's no doubt about that. But, it's just those things that I try to provide some introspective on as far as, hey, it's very difficult. It's going to challenge you and push you. But if you decide to go through, it's the most rewarding experience of your life, and it will change you if you allow it to. And it absolutely did for me. And I think that's something where, especially speaking with a lot of the students that, international students, I didn't realize it's funny now looking at it. We still have a responsibility, all right? I remember we had an international student from Vietnam. He told me, my parents were greatly assisted by the U.S. troops during their time there. And I want to thank you for your service because I support you guys 100%. I sat there and wow, geez, I wasn't even born yet. And here we are now. We still have this legacy of making sure that we continue on with our service, but also too, making sure that, we stand on the shoulders that came before us and we have a responsibility, whether we realize it or not. And so for me, it was great as far as being able to, speak with fellow classmates, but also learn from them. Because quite frankly, like I said, you have to understand where they're coming from, their perspective. And that's one thing I really looked forward to going back into school, which I'm so sorry. Well, I don't know, I just went off there, but my email. But it was one of those things. You're good, man. Yeah, I forgot. I was like, geez, try to silence that. But it's you have those conversations because you have to, right? We can't all be in a silo. We have to engage with one another. And I think that was the biggest thing, especially within service. You're serving with people from all walks of life, different backgrounds. And it was amazing just what they were able to bring to the table, where maybe you had an idea, like, I don't know if they'll be able to pull this off, but then they did. And they probably had the same assumptions about you. And that's where I did, going back to the class, I want to have that exact same experience too, as far as what am I going to learn from these individuals and what can I teach them? So for me, that was the biggest thing, but you're right. When it came to navigating benefits, that became a little bit difficult at times. It was still a brand new field. And that's where, we come in now, especially my current role at A&M Corpus Christi. We understand that transition can be difficult, right? You're complete. Sometimes we do a great job of training. Sometimes we don't do a great job of getting people back in to the classroom and be successful. And that's what we're here for. But no, I appreciate that question because believe me, it's night and day as far as what the Vietnam veterans went through and compared to what we're going through now, where sure. I think we have a lot more veterans helping one another out, especially in these roles and services. And that's what my office does on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I was on a college campus, full time anyway. What's life like, in your job currently? Tell me a little bit about kind of the experience of going to work every day, dealing with college students on a daily basis, and kind of what that's like for you.
Sure. So I'm the current director for the Office of Military Veteran Services at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi. And I'm sorry I have to do this. Shock us up, right? That is what we do. We just got done with our homecoming this past weekend. So, South Texas is getting a little hot. So our basketball teams are doing great, both men's and women's. So what we do in our current role, we are responsible for the processing of veterans education benefits, right? So what does that entail? That's GI Bill and the state of Texas Hayeswood Act exemption. It's exactly what it is. Wow, my emails are just blowing up today. I'm sorry about that. It is. And so what we do is we help from the very beginning, whether it be through the admissions process itself, and then actually applying for those education benefits. And so once we get that in, it's our job to make sure that the classes the students are enrolled are not only applicable to the degree plan, but setting them up for success, right? And even though that is our primary role, as we've noticed now, especially in recent years, there's a lot of gaps in services that we need to start filling in. And a lot of it has to do with, overall student success, whether it be mental health or job placement upon graduation. That's what we're starting to see. That's where we're finding ourselves now in this current period, where when I first got out, it was veteran heavy dominant, right? And, for me, I was speaking their language one-on-one, and now we've seen the past 4 or 5 years, there's a lot more military dependents, and they're using these benefits that have been transferred over, right? It's always strange when they walk in the office, they go, geez, Louise, I served with your dad or mom. This is where the time go. And that is something we're starting to notice now, especially with the recent, with the passing of the PACT Act a few years ago, that expanded eligibility criteria for veterans that may or may not have been exposed to, toxic fumes while we're deployed overseas. But that is our role on a daily basis. I mean, the biggest thing is they want to make sure that these benefits that they have earned and rightfully entitled to are processed in an efficient manner. And that's what we do. But also, too, once we get those benefits processed, we take care of their tuition and making sure their stipend monies come in. What are we doing to make sure they're successful in the classroom? And that's where we're starting to shift more towards now as far as providing additional services. And the great thing, and it ties back to the previous question you had about as far as, the experiences compared to the Vietnam veterans. We have a wonderful community now. I work with a lot of local, state, and federal stakeholders to make sure that if there's a gap in services somewhere, whether it's related to, let's say, for example, they need help paying rent, or they don't know where they're going to get the next meal from. We have individuals, not just individuals, but veterans their service never stops across the board. They're willing to step up and make sure we take care of these individuals because it's important. You know, for me, I'm a firm believer in higher education. Even though I wanted nothing to do with it when I first joined the military and tried everything I did to avoid it at all costs, if it wasn't for higher education, I would not be where I'm at today and have a successful career. But it's because of these opportunities I've been afforded and these doors opened to me because of the caring staff and faculty we have on campus. And I want to make sure I pay that forward because believe me, I was one of those awesome students that showed up last minute and said, I'm here, let's go. And they're all looking at me going, oh, buddy, you have a lot to learn. But if it wasn't for their time and efforts and making sure that I was successful, I wouldn't be here. So we take that very seriously, especially, you know, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of nuances that we have to navigate, but that's our job. Our job is to know all that and to kind of help them navigate that. Because at the end of the day, like I said, when you make that transition from the military, we're all good at something. And sometimes it's just hard for us to articulate what that is, or we don't know what it is just yet. And that's where I think higher education comes in. Because believe me, like I said, I was a criminal justice major. Here I am now working in higher education. I thought my route was pretty clear. Coming out of the Marine Corps, it was going to be, you know, law enforcement, FBI, CIA. I mean, it's just kind of, it made sense, right? But life has a funny way of kind of telling you, no, I think you're needed over here. And I think it's for the past 12 years I've been doing this. It's been absolutely wonderful. So that's what we do at the office.
It's funny you say that about criminal justice. I was an MP, and that's exactly what I thought I was going to do. And about one semester in, I was like, this is not for me. And I didn't know what I was going to do and didn't have really a plan. And my brother had taken some broadcasting classes and he was like, you should try that.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And that's what I'm doing 30 years later, you know? And so it's interesting the path that you go on. Tell me about the ambassador program and being involved in that. And when Ralph reached out to me, I mean, and I looked at the list of all you guys and everybody on there is interesting and has had an interesting impact. Tell me how you connected with Ralph and the program, and then tell me kind of you know, just your thoughts on being selected. I think there were 18 of us, something like that, and so it's
16 of us, something like that. Yeah,
yeah, and so it's I know I was honored to just to get a to be invited to be part of it. To be honest with you, so what are your thoughts on being an ambassador?
So it goes back to the higher education aspect, right? When I was working at American University in DC, attending the events, supporting veterans, I happened to run into this gentleman by the name of Ralph, and never underestimate the power of the Marine Network. I'll put it like that. And we've maintained contact for the past, well over a decade now. And so when he reached out to me about participating in this, first and foremost, you're absolutely right. It's what a tremendous honor and privilege it is, believe me. And you look at the individuals involved with the ambassadorship program and you go, wow, these are individuals that are either still serving or they got out and they've gone on to do incredible things. But that goes to show you the power of the Marine Corps itself, right? You look at the past 250 years, we are still the most revered and fiercest fighting force on the face of the planet. And there's a reason why. But also, too, it's not just in the battle, not in the battleground, but also, too, in everyday life, right? There's a battle going on every day in different manners, different aspects. And the way we tackle those challenges head on. And like I said, first to fight, but also we run to the sound of danger. If something needs to be corrected or fixed, we're going to be there for it. And it's not because it's just part of our character, it's part of our nature, right? And that warrior ethos they always talk about as far as every Marine's a rifleman. Doesn't matter who you are in the chain of command. You could be the general, you could be the lance corporal. You're going to have to step up. And that's what they really preach. And that's what they do a great job of teaching. Believe me, it's, as a young man joining the Marine Corps, sometimes you need a little guidance and direction. And the Marine Corps definitely provided that. But also, too, it's very empowering. And you don't realize at that time, because let's be honest, sales boot camp can be rather difficult. Sometimes you get to your unit, you get to the fleet, and you go, oh, it's going to be a challenge. But you don't realize that you're being tested. You're being challenged because they believe in you. And you look at the Marine to your left and right, and you realize we're not going to do this by ourselves. You're not alone in this. And I think that's the power of it. So being part of this, I think, especially for the past 250 years, I mean, we have a place in our history. We have for 250 years, I have a small place in the history, and I'm very proud of that. And I think that's one of the biggest things we get the messaging out there, right? You look at just overall for me, I come from a military background. My sister currently serves in the Air Force as well as my brother-in-law. But I think we really need to do a good job, or, for me, a better job of promoting what the Marine Corps actually is. Right. It's a brotherhood. It's a way of life, but also too, it's earned. It's not given. And that is something that I think sometimes we need to do a better job and just being accountable, just not only to ourselves, but everyone else, saying, listen, life is going to throw you challenges. It just will. It's how you handle those challenges, though, and what you do to keep getting back up and keep pushing forward, keep fighting. That's something that, at the end of the day, you look at it and you go, you can't take that away from anybody. I think that's for me. That's what the Marine Corps really did for me. as far as, hey, life's going to continue to throw challenges your way. And, what an honor it is to be concluded part of this ambassadorship. They said, you know what? You may feel like you're just a small piece of the puzzle here, but to be kind of profiled and highlighted in this, you go, okay, I guess what? The service never stops, and, we are doing the right thing. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is getting that word out there, because yes, we do like to celebrate. I'll put it like that. We definitely can celebrate the Marine Corps birthday and ball. I mean, first, you have a couple good stories. I have a couple of great stories too, but that's all part of the experience because we've all had that shared hardship. We understand where each other's coming from. We also understand that each one of us brings something to the table. And I want to make sure that when we're out there in this community, especially this year celebrating, we want to make sure everyone is heard. No matter the size, gathering the place, or just wherever you are, you're going to be celebrating the Marine Corps somewhere. Someone's going to be celebrating the Marine Corps, and you just don't know where you're going to run to another Marine. Believe me, I'm pretty sure you've had those experiences too, where you're out in the middle of nowhere and you go, Marine, got it. Let's go. It's amazing. Just we're everywhere, right? You don't think about it, but I think it's also a great time to reconnect too, especially for something like this, a momentous occasion like this. We really need to celebrate it because it's a big deal. I mean, think about it, right? 250 years. We started in a bar 250 years ago, and here we are now. It's you don't know where these things are going to take you in life. I think that's what the beautiful thing about it is.
Yeah, it is an honor to be a part of the Marine Corps history. I think that's exactly true. No matter what role you played, I was in the reserves in the 90s. I was never deployed, but that little sliver of my life that I learned the things that I learned that still serve me today. And I think that's where I want to end this. There are parts like you mentioned earlier, whether you're a Marine or a veteran of any kind, that sticks with you forever. That doesn't just go away. And there are parts of my life that I lean on those things today. There are parts of it where I can't even I can't believe I did some of the things I did back then. I've been out for a long time, but sure. But at the same time, there are parts of that I lean on, just as far as hold myself accountable. The importance of showing up, working hard, not being afraid to get dirty if you have to, as far as putting your head down and just do the work, and those are the things that I think of like that are everyday things that still apply 30 years after I've been out. And so just your thoughts on that. What are the things that maybe apply to your life as far as how you live your life that you learned through your time in the Marine Corps?
So I always go back to this moment. I remember the moment in boot camp where we finally got our camis with our, nameplates on there, said U.S. Marines. And I think about that moment in Heartbreak Ridge, the great Clint Eastwood, right? And that final mission they're doing over there, they kick down the door and say U.S. Marines. And it's funny, no matter where I've gone, especially in work, it's like, don't worry, we've got the Marine in the office. And I'm really proud of that. But also, there's, like I said, we have a standard to uphold. And it's interesting how no matter where you go, you're right. There's no such thing as a former Marine. We're just all Marines forever. And no matter where I've gone professionally or personally, don't worry, we've got the Marine. We've got the Marine here. We've got the Marine. I always hear that. And it means a lot. It means a lot. And you think, it's been almost 20 years since I stepped on those yellow footprints at Parris Island. And here I am now, 20 years later. And it's still a part of my life every day. I look inside and you always say, like you say, it goes back to the challenges you face in life. It's funny how I always lean on it because I'll look internally and go, I'm a United States Marine. We'll figure this out. We'll be okay. And you lean on that every day without even thinking about it. And I think that's, like I said, it's difficult to describe sometimes because unless you've actually been through that experience and, you've gone through that experience, we had that shared experience and the knowledge and also sometimes the acronyms, the lingo, and you go, we're on the same page without having to say a word. And I think that's how I treat everything in life, right? As far as making sure that we're elite in what we do, whether it be in the office, whether it be personally, we're going to be elite. You're going to make mistakes. That is that is the rite of passage. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall down and you're going to trip up, but you have to go through those experiences because if you're not trying, guess what? You're not going to make those mistakes. And anything worthwhile is going to be difficult to obtain. And I'm a firm believer of that. So it goes back to when you finally get that Eagle Globe anchor after you complete the crucible and you go, oh, wow, how did I even pull this off? Well, it's because you kept pushing yourself further and further. That's where the Marine Corps comes into play. So for me, like I said, it's thinking about that now. It's something I lean on every day. But there's still times I go, I may not be as, physically gifted or in shape as I once was, but it's that, talk about that Marine Corps mindset, right? There's still part of me goes, no, I still got it. But that's what keeps things fun and interesting, but also too, it just makes me very proud, that's so. Yeah, no, it's tough because it goes back to the earlier points of 250 years. Wow. And you don't think about it. And you have a small piece of that history, and yeah, it will be with me forever.
A big thank you to E.J. Goodroe for this conversation on Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. I hope you join me again real soon.